So evolvUP is a program that we've developed that is focusing on providing more opportunities for like inner city youth, for the underprivileged, to help them really figure out what they're good at, just naturally what they're good at. What, if they had whatever options were available to them, we're going to help them figure out what that is, and we're going to also help them figure out what to do with it. So career paths, we're going to provide them with a support group of people that are similar to them, and most of this is going to be done through a software. So right now we have the basic software of identifying the strengths. We can identify the career paths, but from there, that's what we're developing is something that we can hand to someone that's going to be on their phone, in their pocket, that is going to be a support system. It's going to be goal tracking. It's going to be direction. It's going to be encouragement. It's going to be all of those things. So that's where that starts. So I should say where evolvUP comes from is the relationship between you and I. So obviously going back to our experience with you, and like that's kind of where it comes from. So why don't you tell a little bit about your background, and it can lead up to where we met up and even up till now.
Okay. For those who don't know, I'm Gary, Ross-Mitchelle. When I was about 16 years old, I landed at ROP. The reason why I landed at ROP is basically because of my background: gangs, drugs, my household, alcoholics, family members, things of that nature. The gangs, most likely, though, in my bad life decisions and not having a positive peer to be around me consistently directed me in the right path. And what I mean on that is I needed guidance, I needed help. But the only guidance and help that I really had, he was in college. He was away. My father wasn't there. He wasn't present. He wasn't a father to me. He was too busy in the streets or in prison and so forth. So when I did seek guidance, I got the wrong type of guidance from the wrong people in my neighborhood. So instead of getting handed a book or motivated to pursue college, I got handed a dope sack and a gun and a bandana and said, "Welcome to this. We your family now, and we'll take care of you." And from there forth, at that age, it's very intriguing because for you to be in a household with no family that interacts with you, acts like they love you, things of that nature, and then this gang comes along and they love you, and everybody's giving hugs, and it's like a family. It was a false front of a family type, but it was a negative type. So I ran for it. I loved it. I started doing robberies at the age of 13. My first sentence was at the age of 13. I did almost 2 years, got out, was on probation. I had a habit of smoking weed. I violated probation because I couldn't stop smoking weed. Ended up going to treatment facilities, back to jail. Then I landed in ROP, where I met Joe. And
hold on,
man,
hold on. Well, I'm going to ask you a quick question. So I want to go back a second. So, like, where was the influence coming from the very beginning? Like, was that from within your family? Was it from the neighborhood?
Yes.
It's from
Yes,
within
it was
the
from
family.
within my family. My cousins were gang members, and my brothers were. My brothers were gang members as well. One of my oldest brothers, Eric, also out. Ryan was off to college. My other oldest brother, Stevie, was working with his family. My brother, Eric, boom, smack dab, gang member, and everything else. I had to adapt to what he was doing, and he influenced it on to me because it was cool to him at that time. So
Yeah.
I didn't have. It's not like I had an option, you know.
Yeah.
So I took what I had and I ran with it, you know.
So, I mean, like early on, what was, like, obviously it appealed to you because that's
Yes,
what you're saying. Like, it was like cool, and it was, money and parties and, that kind of thing.
yeah.
Like, did at any point it seem like, I don't like it? Like when you get locked up the first time, or was it like, that's just part of it?
Yeah, I did not like it. I don't think anybody likes going to jail, and if they say that they do, they're lying.
Yeah.
That's just honest. Nobody likes being locked up behind a cage or a door, and somebody telling you what you can do, when to eat, nobody likes that.
Yeah.
But what I did was, me being who I was, I took it as part of my rep. I
Yeah.
took it as part of who I'm going to become, and I adapted. And that was the problem. That was the main problem. I just learned how to adapt to whatever situation came at
Hmm.
me, and I adapted to it. So while I was in there, when I went in there, I wasn't as hard as I was when I came in. When I went in there, I wasn't as hard as I came out, if that makes sense. I came
Yeah.
out harder than when I went in there
Yep.
because I adapted and maintained in there.
So was that like, was your experience, was it common? Like the getting in that young, getting in because of family,
Yes,
getting
it was.
addicted to drugs at a young age. Like, is that normal? Is that
Yeah,
common?
when I was 13 starting, majority of my friends were around the same age, 14, 15, 13. We're all smoking and drinking, and
Yeah.
with my mom being a single mom and trying to manage 6 other kids, it's like I was slipping and sliding and getting away and thinking I was grown and battling with her and running away, sneaking out. She called the police on me a couple times,
Mm.
reported me as a runaway, and they brought me home and things of that nature. Ankle bracelet. I had to go through it all, running from the law and everything else.
Yeah. So is it still like that? Like with kids
Yes,
that age?
yes, it is, and it's very sad because it's now that I'm older and I can look back on it, it's still cool for you to do that. But even nowadays,
Mm.
it's not that they have to do it. Like I had to do it. I felt like I had to do it.
Mm.
My neighborhoods, um, it was rough. It was rough, and it was kind of like survival of the fittest. And if you wasn't involved in that, then you wasn't surviving. You was getting
Yeah.
jumped on your way home. You was getting jumped at the corner store. Single mom, she couldn't really pay bills. I sold drugs, helped my mom out, things of that nature. We almost lost our home. I had to do some things that I regretted just to help my mom out.
Yeah.
Nowadays, a lot of these kids don't have to do it, but they
Yeah.
still choose to because it's cool, and they don't want to be seen as punks or weak or things of that nature. And it's really sad. It's really sad.
So and we'll probably get into more of this like another time, but like, so tell me about your kid because he's about that age now too.
Right, right, right.
So what's his experience knowing where you came from and like the things you're teaching him?
Um,
Like what's it like for
well,
him?
he's seen both sides of the
Hmm.
tracks when it comes to us. So he's seen my brother who has a doctorate degree, college,
Yeah.
me after I got myself together, went to college, things of that nature. But he's
Mhm.
also seen me in his younger years when I wasn't right.
Yeah.
So I would have him out late with me at night, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's riding with me. I'm risking not only myself but my son at the same time. He's riding in the car with me, 7 years old, 6 years old, 5 years old, out in traffic with me while I'm selling drugs and partying and things of that nature. He saw me with multiple women, not having a place to stay. At one point in time, I honestly feel like God took my son away from me because I was training him in how I was living at that point in time. I had him throwing up gang signs at
Mhm.
4 or 5 years old, and it was, man, man, man.
Well, and I think like you said before, like I think that's a big part of the problem is like you get kids that are raised in that environment and then they become grown and they do it and then they have kids and then their kids see it and it's that cycle
Right,
that keeps going on and on. So and
right, and
that kind of takes us back to Ridgeview where you and I met because I remember him, he was just this big,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but you had your kid when you were there in ROP. So tell me more.
I had just had Jaleel.
Yeah.
That So the first year I got to ROP, I had my son in June, and I got to ROP around August or September of 2006.
Yeah.
Um, and man, one thing I want to say is that I always told myself that I would be nothing like my father because of I didn't like him for how he was towards me. And once I hit ROP, I was realizing that I was turning into the exact same man that I didn't like or didn't want to be. When I first hit ROP, I was angry. I didn't like people. I got into it with Geo Creep. Everybody, I was bucking. I was trying to buck the system in there, but the determination of the program is what broke me. It literally broke me. It literally broke me. And then here comes Joe, this dude with these big old calves and this dang bag strapped around him all the time. Hat, the same type of hat.
Yeah, it might have been the same hat. Who knows?
Here he comes strolling in there, and you were just different from every other white person I ever met. First of all, you were just different. You didn't have a prideful demeanor. You didn't have a superior demeanor about you. You know, you came at me like a normal human being, humble. You worked with me. You knew I had issues, and I know I used to drive you crazy.
Yeah, you did.
But you had the patience. You had the patience to be like, man, this kid has so much potential. Yeah. Somebody needs to invest their time in him. And you investing your time in me and teaching me. And I learned about The Secret through you and everything else. You sat me in this room and I'm watching this online. I'm like, okay, what you put out there in the world comes back, and just everything that you did really, really helped me and saw who I was. I didn't know half of the strengths I had. I didn't know half of the potential I could do. Remember that time we was on I was on an interview and ROP programmed me so hard. I told the woman, stand by on the phone.
Yes, you did. I remember.
We all started laughing in there, but that's how much it helps me. I got my GED in there. If it wasn't for ROP, I wouldn't have got my GED or any of those things. But more than anything, if it wasn't for me believing in myself, I would have quit. I would have quit the program. I would have went to concerns, tapped out, and just stopped. You know, and I became one of the leaders on the floor, on the unit and outside.
Yeah, and I think that taps into exactly what Evolve is, and I think it's generated from that experience that you and I had together of here's this young man that comes in, and I hate to say it, no fault of your own, because it was definitely your fault, but it was, but it was like, it was your life. Like, that's like, nobody faulted you for doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. I mean, it's the same as, you know, I'm looking up to someone that's gone to college and, you know, they have a steady job. Like, that's what they taught me growing up. And then you get taught, you join a gang when you're 13.
Right.
And so you come into this program and it takes someone saying, hey, you know what? Like, that's not who you are. Like, that's just a thing that you've done, and who you are is so much more than that. So we're trying to develop a program.
So basically I didn't have somebody telling me you could be this, or you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you can be a counselor, you can be all these things. I had one of the sayings growing up was, I'm from the hood. That's all I'm going to be is hood. I ain't going to be nothing else better. So I might as well just deal with this type stuff, you know? And nobody was boosting each other, you know? So me coming in there, I'm like, dude, I'm hood. All right, this all I'm going to be. I'm from the streets. You can't tell me nothing. And I'm going to die like this. That's how I saw my future. And that's the only future I thought I had.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting for someone like me, like growing up in Idaho, like that's not a real thing. Like, it may be something you see in movies or you hear about in rap music or something. Like, that's not real. And then, you know, I show up to ROP. I mean, that's it. Like, where you see it. Like, you don't see any of those other things. And so I show up at ROP and maybe it was ignorance on my end or whatever it was, but it was, hey, look, like there's more than this. There's more to your life. And especially like looking at you and seeing like the leadership qualities and seeing the determination, like those are all really valuable characteristics, just being used in a really bad way.
Yes.
So now it's like, okay, let's point out some of the things that you're actually really good at, and let's provide you with a support system that's going to be the opposite of everything you've grown up with, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we tried with you. And I mean, obviously that was ROP was not the end of the road, obviously,
No,
of
it
the
wasn't.
struggles that you had, but
But
um,
it was the beginning of me seeing my potential
yeah, like it
and what I
planted a
can do.
seed there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And there, I also realized that me surrounding myself with similar peers that were trying to do the same thing made me also better.
Yeah.
Me connecting with like Jock or
Yeah.
Man, other people that was seeking the same thing to better
Hmm.
ourselves made me a better person. Instead of, because there was gangs there too. There's
Yeah.
gangs there, there was gang members there too, but I chose not to entertain that while I was there because you and other people were helping my mind to stay focused. There was times I
Yep.
would come there and I didn't had a day, and I'm like, man, I need to talk. I need to
Hmm.
talk. And somebody need to check this stupid person up there in my brain that's telling me to do the opposite.
Yeah.
So it was definitely my first beginning of my mental fight of myself.
Yep.
I never fought myself mentally until I got there.
Yeah. And I think like that's the other side of this is like when you're growing up with a support group that is telling you to do, to run the streets, and you're doing drugs and gangs and all those things like that, that's your support group. So now we flip that on the other side and we're saying, okay, now we're going to find a group of people that are similar to you and have similar strengths and similar goals and similar ambitions, just like Jock did with you. And we're going to partner you guys up. And now you're all going to build each other up in a different direction. And it would actually be really interesting to have Jock on the show too, to get his perspective on it, because I mean he's doing well too, right?
Man, he's doing amazing.
Yeah, and
Amazing.
it's because of that. It's because of that support group. It's because
Right.
we were able to identify, hey, you're actually good at some things. Here's a support group of people that are like you, that have similar goals, and then you build each other up, and you've made a lifelong friendship out of it.
Right, right. If I had, so it was different. So I would leave outside the hood at times. I had a
Hmm.
mentor and things of that nature
Yeah.
too. I would
Yep.
go with my mentor and talk, but then once I leave that, I'm put right back in the mud.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I can't get clean here. I'm trying. I hear
Yeah.
this out here. I hear this, but then I'm right here. I go out my
Hmm.
back door,
Yep.
and it's people with guns and dope and things of that nature. So that's what was. I didn't have any good friends.
Yeah. And when it's so much a part of your life,
Right.
getting out of it is like it's almost impossible. And that's why we see like there's so much of a problem with it. And it's why there's that revolving, that generational problem, because it's so hard to get out of. And then you grow up and your kids are like that, and they grow up and their kids are like that, and it just
Right.
keeps going.
And then
Yeah.
you go to, like, I went to camp and things of that nature when I was younger. When I was at a Catholic school, had a
Yeah.
basketball scholarship to Matchbook, from
Yeah.
Matchbook to Regis. Lost that because I had an anger problem trying to fight the referee.
Yeah.
Just, man, I had so much going on and lost that full ride scholarship.
Yeah.
But it's when I would leave outside of my area, I felt uncomfortable. I wasn't supposed to be there, but that was the brainwashing.
Hmm.
Me telling myself that I wasn't worthy to be in the mountains or to
Yeah.
be hiking or to be at a cabin. It felt awkward to me. It felt real weird, and I'm like, this ain't for me. So a lot of times I would
Hmm.
run from it and go back to what I knew.
Yeah. It's well, and it's funny because that's something that probably everybody has experienced when they try to step out of their comfort zone, right?
Right,
It's
right,
just it just happens that your comfort zone happened to be gangs and drugs, right?
right.
So it's everybody experiences this, and I think that's why someone that maybe can't relate to your experience can watch this and say, oh, it's kind of like that, where like I'm so comfortable doing a certain thing, like maybe it's a job, or maybe it's a relationship, or maybe it's a where you live, and like just the thought of leaving, I can't do it because it's so comfortable to me, and that was your experience, like that's what was comfortable, and the idea of leaving it was so, I don't know, intimidating, scary, whatever it is.
Yeah,
It's hard to think about. being able to
It's
do it.
frightening. It
Yeah.
is. It is frightening. It's when I'm out here, everybody's looking at me.
Yeah.
I'm the outsider. I don't feel. It's like I'm not comfortable at all. I had tickets for courtside. I'm
Hmm.
sitting courtside, but I felt so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how the heck? No, this is not. This isn't. I left the game. I
Did you?
left the game from sitting courtside because I felt like everybody's eyes was on me as the
Yeah.
hood person who's not supposed to be there,
You didn't
and
fit in.
yeah, and I just left. And to this day, I regret it because I could have enjoyed myself on that courtside, but I was too paranoid, didn't want to break outside of myself, and I missed out on that opportunity.
So was it the Nuggets?
Yep, it was Nuggets.
So you have been a fan before.
Yeah,
It didn't just start. That's good.
yeah.
That's good.
I think
So
I'm just jumping on the bandwagon this year.
hey, it happens. It happens.
Right.
Okay, so maybe to finish up, maybe just talk real quick about like where you're at now. Like what's going on in your life right now, and we can kind of see the end result of where everything has gone.
Um, well, I feel like it's a lot more I can share, so maybe I can finish up to the part where I left ROP, and the next podcast we have a meeting, we
Mm-hmm.
can go from there on
Yeah, we got
part two.
lots more that we'll talk about for sure.
Yeah. But once I left ROP after meeting Joe, um, it was a blessing that I was able to stay in contact with you first and foremost. Um, I actually thought it was because of me you left, but I keep that to myself. I was because it was the same week I left, you left or something like that.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was right
something.
around that same time. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you always kept telling me come to Ohio, do these things, or yeah, it was Ohio,
Idaho.
Idaho. You was telling me
Yeah.
to come because you were moving. I helped you move. You gave
Yep.
me a few things, and I was still not ready. But you knew that. I didn't know you knew it, but you know a lot that's about me that I don't know about myself. So, but I wasn't ready for the full change because
Yeah.
I was only there at ROP for 2 years, and that's not going to fully change a person, within all those years of me growing up with all of this stuff. But it did start me off. And when I got out of there, I was glad that we kept in contact, but it was kind of like you were the only positive thing that kept me focused, motivated. And once you was gone, it was like,
Yeah.
all right, let's go back to
Hard.
this. And that's where the next crazy part of my life started.
Yeah. Lots more stories there. Yeah, but things are good now, right? So
Yes. As of now, I'm married. I have my son back home. I have a home. I have a career. Longest job I've ever had in my life. First job. Well, I never thought I would be doing this job in my life. Um, I'm in church. I'm with the ministry. Man, it's a whole lot. And like I said, once I gave my life back to God, because I grew up in the church.
mm-hmm.
I grew up in the church. I was a deacon when I was younger. A lot of stuff that was going on in my household made me run from the church.
Yeah.
And so once I founded myself back into the church, that's when God rearranged every single thing, because it was me fighting myself, thinking I could all do it myself, but actually He renewed my mind, my heart, my spirit, and directed it in the way that He wanted it to go,
Yeah.
which in return worked out for me. So ever since I came back to the church, it's going on 2 years now, man, I've had the best life I can ever have. My brothers and them still cry when they hear about this because it took me 15 years to get to where I'm at today. 15 long, hard, stressful, life and death, dodging years.
Yeah.
To get here. So I'm more than happy, blessed, and humble to be where I'm at today, and I don't take it for granted, not a day that goes by.
Well, and I'll tell you just from my perspective, like you're happier than I've ever seen you before. And like your life is completely rid of parties and all of that crazy stuff, but you're happier than you've ever been.
Yes.
Which says a lot about like that life that you were scared of. Now it's all of your life and it's so much better. And and that thing that you were scared of doing has made your life that much happier and that much better. And it was a path to get through it, obviously, but like once you got there, you realized there's a lot of peace that you can find from that type of life. So.
Yeah.